Good morning, everyone. I want to extend a warm welcome to each and every one of you today. Everyone is welcome here. People of any age, race, size, ability, gender identity, or expression are welcome here. Anyone of any position, educational level, income, religion, or political ideals is welcome here. We stand on the side of love, and all love is welcome here. We welcome you regardless of the regrets that burden you or the mistakes that you have made. In this beloved community, we support each other in the sacred task of becoming, celebrate the transcending mystery of life, and rely on the transforming power of love. It is our work to walk with each other along the spiritual pathways that lead toward happiness, compassion, and a life well lived. In this place, we create the structures that lift up the downtrodden, set the captive free, and heal the brokenhearted. Here we have learned that to be fully human is to be fully divine, and that with the help of each other, we can each tell our own unique, courageous story. Today, we are recognizing National Coming Out Day. October is Gay History Month. There are a lot of our people who have been very courageous, and I know we're talking about courage. But to think about it, probably the most courageous thing any of us in the queer community have ever had to do is come out. Most people can wake up every morning and not have to think about any challenge they have with being who they are. I'm happy that I'm comfortable enough with getting up every morning who I am and going to bed every night who I am. But there are people out there who have to struggle with being different people, wearing different masks, different times. Coming out is such a courageous thing, but it's such a freeing thing. If I could do it again, I would. It was rough to go through, but I am who I am today, and I'm very happy to be who I am today. Thank you. Thank you. I want to thank the Welcoming Congregation Committee for putting together this service. I want to thank Beth for the work that she has done, putting our music together and putting all the videos, a lot of work to do with that. And I want to thank you all for being here. So we'll go, instead of me rambling on, we've got a lot of good speakers today, a lot of good music, so I'm just going to let them do the work that needs to be done. And we'll go do our announcements next. Right. Now we'll do our affirmation, which is right up there and should appear on the screen. Love is the spirit of this fellowship, and service is its law. This is our great covenant, to dwell together in peace, to seek the truth in love, and to help one another.
These words from Linda Lee Franson. We light this flame to ignite our hearts and minds, the spark of knowledge that enlightens, the shimmering hope that burns, the blazing love that engulfs our actions, the bonfire of our commitment. We light this flame for those who celebrate themselves, who fear, who hope, who persevere, who stand on the side of love for all. We light this flame for those who have been ridiculed, that they may find peace, for those who have fought to marry, that they may celebrate, for those who live in uncertainty in the world, that they may have hope. We light this flame to renew our commitment that no one shall ever again suffer for the right to love. We light this flame to celebrate our kaleidoscope of diversity, working, loving, and living on the side of love. For this, we light this flame.
Thank you, Dorothy. That was very nice. Our speaker today was originally going to be here. Gerik had a family event come up about a week ago. His sister-in-law told him that his niece was being dedicated today, and in the evangelical community, a dedication is pretty close to a baptism, and he certainly could not miss that. So he was nice enough to make us a video, and so we give you Gerik Nasstrom.
Hello, my name is Gerik, and I'm the program coordinator at OutCenter Southwest Michigan. I'm so excited to be here with you this morning virtually. Unfortunately, I'm not able to be there with you in person. I had a family event pop up, and so I look forward to being able to hang out with you all on a Sunday soon. But I am still excited to be able to discuss Coming Out Day with you all. That is on October 11th, just 2 days from now. And I'm excited to kind of get to share with you a little bit about what the OutCenter does, a little bit of my coming out story, and then let you on your merry way on this beautiful Sunday morning. So first of all, I'm Gerik. I'm the program coordinator, as I said before, and the OutCenter is always trying to do more and more for our community, and you all have been a wonderful partner, both in your support financially, in your support with volunteering, in your activity in our programs and in our community outreach. You all have been wonderful partners, and I just want to thank you all from the bottom of my heart for all the support that we felt from Buff. You guys are just fantastic. And so I just want to talk a little bit about what those programs are, what we do, and then I'll get into some of the coming out stuff. So first of all, as the program coordinator, one of the things we really wanted to step into when I was looking at programs for 2022 was creating community, creating relationships with people, creating that spot where people can come where they feel loved and accepted and feel like they can, build those relationships with a community, especially with 2 years of a pandemic, and now we're in 3 years of a pandemic. We just know that these bonds between people are more important than ever. And so that's what kind of gave birth to our OutCenter Chats program. And so that is started with Queer Chats, which was bi-weekly at the time. And it has grown into now we have a chat every Thursday. Brett is actually a facilitator on our Faith Chats now. And we have a writers group, we have a book discussion group, and then Queer Chats is stuck around as well. And so we've really loved to see the growth that we've been able to see in 2022 into doing socials once a month and now going into twice a month. Being able to start Tag Me In has been another really big goal for this year that we're really proud of. We were, with the help of a lot of Buff members, able to spread the reproductive rights petitions across the state of Michigan and in our Tri-County area. And now we have that on the ballot. The Reproductive Rights Prop 3 was because of the unified effort that we saw across the state of Michigan. And you all were a small part of that. We were a small part of that. And we were able to, join together and really make something spectacular happen very quickly after some incredibly sad news with Roe v. Wade being overturned. We were able to mobilize and really just, put our feet to the stone and work and make this thing happen. And now what we're looking at with Tag Me In is going back into school board meetings. We just had our second Tag Me In meeting just a couple days ago now that this is Sunday, so it would have been Wednesday. And we had a couple of your members there as well. We're very excited to see you all there. And you all have, again, really kind of shown that love and compassion and that dedication to the work of equity. And that's what Tag Me In is all about, is getting folks like you involved in the community, pushed out into the community with some information, with schedules for school board meetings coming up, and then just the community organizing behind you to try to see if we can really make change happen. Advocate for students in their schools, advocate for queer teachers, advocate for the creation of GSA clubs and inclusion policies, and continuing to push the ball forward with the work that we've been able to do behind the scenes with, doing our Brave Schools initiative, which is our training to school facilitators and administrators to create inclusive spaces in their schools. We're now expanding that to medical things as well. So we're working with the hospitals and working with, the doctors and physicians in our area to really continue to push the cause of equity, the cause of LGBTQ people, to create spaces in our community, especially with the systems of power, that can become inclusive, that can become, able to serve the needs of the LGBTQ community. And that is something that, we're really proud of that work, and we're really proud to continue to build that coalition with, regular people, with, churchgoers, and with parents, and with grandparents, and with friends, to really kind of build that grouping together, to try to make our schools, to try to make our community, to try to make, everything that we're doing just that much safer, that much better. And when it's better for a group of people, it becomes better for everybody. When you set a culture that, prohibits bullying, when you set a culture that, is accepting and loving and affirming, that extends to everyone. That doesn't stop with one group. And, we believe in joining hands with everybody and pushing forward the cause of justice. Martin Luther King, he had a great quote, which I shared just a couple days ago. It tagged me in. Love, and this is going to be a super abridged version, please don't quote me on this. It's something along the lines of, love without power is sentimental and anemic, and power without love is abusive and overpowering and, incredibly negative. And this idea of, combining love with power, not rejecting power because we're afraid that it will corrupt us, and not rejecting love because we think we have to in order to attain power. Really trying to combine these two concepts and saying, hey, we need to be, as loving people, pursuing power. And by power, it's not always positions of power. It's organizing together. There's power, in my Christian tradition growing up, which we'll get into in a minute, talks about when two or more are gathered, that God is there, that there's power there when you organize locally. And I believe that is true. When you look at organizing and the power that you can have just by getting in a room with a few folks and organizing, going to a school board meeting, organizing, to send out petitions to your neighbors, organizing to, create a school lunch program, or any kinds of things that you look at throughout organizing history, you can really start to build this incredible infrastructure that can support love, this infrastructure that can, really mobilize people and push people towards creating a better world that we can all continue to be loving citizens who are treated decently and treat others with decency. And so with that, not to get off that soapbox, we'll get on to a different one. Coming out. Now, in our community, that is a issue that has a lot of dynamics. For a lot of folks here, we have a very religious community. We have a lot of churches. We joke at the OutCenter, you can throw a tennis ball and hit a church. I've been saying that forever. I was a pastor in a church. I was on staff as their media director. I was a credentialed minister, working with their youth department as well. And, I'm was so in tune with the church culture here in Southwest Michigan. And it is very dominant in a lot of spaces. There's a lot of that culture that seeps in even in non-church spaces, that same mindset and culture. And so for a lot of queer people, it's very tough to come out. It's very tough to live publicly out of the closet, to, paint your fingernails, to, be in a same-sex relationship, to walk around with your spouse. Oftentimes there are folks that have expressed concerns and that they don't always, hold hands with their significant other in public. And these just heartbreaking tales that when you're in a community where being, queer, LGBTQ is so otherized, sometimes coming out can be a real challenge. And for me, it kind of expressed itself in a different way. For me, I grew up very, evangelical Christian, was always the go-getter in the church group, was always, pushing these things. But at the same time was very, in my mind, very like the most liberal evangelical in the room, I guess. When I was in second grade, I was on the playground arguing with a pastor's kid that women should be allowed to minister. And we were like debating back and forth as 2 second graders. And I'm like, no, women can be pastors. And he's like, no, it's not allowed. And we were like arguing back and forth as a second grader. That's always been my heart, has been to, be accepting and loving. And there was always, growing up evangelical, this dialectic between my tendency and my desire to be loving and accepting, and a theology that did not affirm that, a theology that pushed against that. And so there's a lot of chaos going on in my mind at all times as I was trying to justify these things and these conflicting motivations. And in that same way, being LGBTQ in that space was very confusing for me. I didn't have the language. I talk about this a lot. There's the famous book 1984, George Orwell. It's kind of been joked about to death. It gets used a lot in political discourse, but I think there's something really powerful about the idea in the book where it talks about the erasure of language, that this big authoritarian government starts to limit the words that you're allowed to use. And in so, it limits the thoughts that you're allowed to think. Because when you limit language, and when you restrict language, you restrict neural pathways. You restrict your ability to reason. You restrict your ability to create those more complex thoughts. And for me, LGBTQ stuff just didn't have a place in my mind. And so I lived all these queer experiences and never had a frame of reference to explain them. I was like, oh, well, this is normal, right? This is what people do. Never being able to recognize these patterns in my mind and patterns in who I was and who I loved. And so for me, that limiting of language is so incredibly damaging to so many, especially people who are, closeted maybe even to themselves at this moment. And so for me, that expansion of language has become such an issue for me, of pushing for, better education, pushing for better access to information. I think the internet has been both, there's a lot of negative that comes with the internet, don't get me wrong, but I think one of the positives that we see at the internet today is it gives people the opportunity to hear stories, gives people the opportunity to hear, the experience of other folks. And so in those stories, they get to see reflections of their own experiences. They get to see what they've gone through in the context of somebody else. And then all of a sudden they're like, oh, that was a realization this person had, and I'm a lot like that. And they get to, for me, it was, starting to hear queer stories, starting to hear these ideas, starting to hear these thoughts that really started to help me deconstruct a lot of the bad things that I believed, and help me to really recognize who I was. I remember, I think I was in high school, me and my very normal, not gay male best friend. That's what I like to joke about. This is very weird dynamic that I had with this male best friend. He was at all of my family events. We were inseparable, spent all kinds of time together. We both mutually agreed not to date other people in high school, but we weren't gay. We were like, we're not gay, but we're two very close male best friends with a lot going on. But I was talking to him, and I remember saying, if I wasn't a Christian, I might be gay. Because in my head, it was just such a, you can't be this if you're this. If you're a Christian, you can't be gay. But in my head, I was able to still somehow recognize, if I wasn't a Christian, I might be gay. And years later, I look back at that now, and I'm like, oh, yeah, because you are gay. You are gay. You're LGBT, bi, pan, whatever you want to call it. And it's those little moments, those glimpses. I heard a friend say it's like looking at a carnival through the hole of a wall. So you've got like a little knot hole and this wood wall, and you're looking through, and you can see a little bit of the carnival. You can see a little bit of like a carousel horse going by, a kid walks by with cotton candy. You see a clown honking his nose or something, but all you can see is a little hole. You can't see the full picture because you still have this wall up. You still have this, this thing that's distorting your vision, and you can still see just a glimmer of it every now and again. You can see, what's greater behind it. That's where my evangelical is coming out a little bit. Forgive me. And for me, it's about breaking down that wall. You know, for me, when that wall started to break down, you start to get better glimpses. You start to understand more about what's going on. You start to see, there's that old, I think it's a C.S. Lewis analogy. It might not be. You guys can correct me on that. I'm not going to look it up. It's this old analogy of like people's experiences of God, and it's like an elephant, you know, like you have 6 different people touch an elephant and they're all going to say it's a different thing. You see someone touches the leg of the elephant and it's a tree trunk. They're like, oh, this must be a giant tree. They touch the trunk of the elephant and they're like, oh, it must be a snake. They touch the ear of the elephant. They're like, oh, it's, you know, some kind of like sea life creature, or it's some kind of fan, or it's some kind of whatever. They touch the tail and they're like, oh, it must be, you know, some weird, I don't know what the tail would be, like a paintbrush or something, whatever. They touch all these different parts. They touch the tusk and they're like, it could be a rhino, it could be this. You know, you touch all these different elements of an elephant, and in a dark room, you can't always see the greater context. You know, but when you're able to step back, when you're able to look at it in the light of day, you can see, oh no, these are all the same animal. This is all the same thing. Even though you can touch different parts and have very different experiences with those. And I think for a lot of people, you know, they just have not been given the opportunity to step back. And so they haven't been able to always recognize patterns inside themselves. And in that same way, it took me a long time to learn enough about the LGBTQ plus community to identify as LGBTQ plus. And for a lot of folks, I think that's that same, you know, situation where they are, you know, closed off and given a very limited worldview as a child. And it takes them a lot, you know, sometimes it takes them decades, sometimes it takes them months, sometimes it takes them years, but it's this process of deconstructing the wall that's been placed in front of you so that you're not just looking through the little knot hole, you're able to see the full picture in front of you. And so for me, that process took years and years, being able to like slowly recognize patterns, being able to accept myself. You know, there's a lot of shame, a lot of guilt when you start to recognize patterns. You're like, you still are taught in your head like, oh, this is evil, this is a sin, this is bad. But you're starting to notice that these patterns aren't going away. You're starting to notice, you know, oh, this is a part of me, I think. And being able to slowly, you know, do the research into your own faith. And for me, that meant deconstructing a lot of the beliefs I had when it came to theology and faith and spirituality. And for a lot of people, they can maintain that same faith belief. But for me, I really think like the biggest hurdle that I had coming out was family. You know, it was friends. You know, for me, I've always been very vocal about my beliefs. And so there were already, as I was leaving the church, as I was leaving that community, bridges kind of being burned, for lack of a better word. You know, like I, you know, with love and compassion, being able to say, like, I don't believe this anymore and I'm not going to pretend to anymore. And for a lot of folks, that rubbed them the wrong way. And so they weren't even in my life by the time I came out. But with family, I remember distinctly thinking like, okay, I'm not gonna come out, because it was around October where I was really like, okay, I came out to my brothers, I came out to my friends, but with my extended family and my parents, I'm like, okay, I'm not gonna come out to them until after the holidays. And in my head, it was like, I'm gonna give them one last good Thanksgiving, one last good Christmas, and then we'll see what happens after that. And so, like, if things blow up, if they don't want to talk to me anymore, if I don't want to talk to them anymore, at least we'll have that one last good holiday season. And so I made sure, like, I didn't fight with them about anything. I didn't debate any politics during Thanksgiving. No matter, I was white knuckling through Thanksgiving as I had uncles saying all kinds of things. Christmas went by. It was a great Christmas. We had a great family time. Wonderful, picturesque Christmas for my family. And then the first of the year, I came out to everybody publicly on Facebook. I didn't even call people. I was just like, I'm putting it on Facebook. That's how I'm going to come out. And if they call me about it, they'll call me about it. But I'm not going to hide it anymore. I'm not going to, you know, post cryptically about it. I'm just going to be open about it. And that's, you know, luckily they accepted that and were fine with it for the most part. we just don't talk about it is really what it is. It's not like accepted it. They're like, okay, we'll just pretend like you didn't come out. But in that same way, like for me, it was like a slow process of coming out. Like I came out to my friends, I came out to my brothers, I came out to those who I was really close to. And then it was eventually like, okay, I can't hide this part of me anymore. I need to make it a public thing. I can't push this back anymore. And so it was kind of creating that safety net of like that last good Christmas. And then, preparing for whatever happens. And I think a lot of queer people have that experience of, we'll see what happens. I kept it quiet for as long as I could, but for some folks, it's like I got in a relationship, or for some other folks, I started transitioning, or I started this, or I started that. There's no hiding it anymore. I think, each person has their different point where that ends up happening. And there's a lot of thoughts that goes in, there's a lot of encouragement that comes when you do that, when you publicly come out. And then there's a lot of backlash. You lose a lot of friends. My Facebook friend count dropped like 20 people after I did that. And, that's just part of life. That's part of that experience of, people can love you, they can be a friend of you, or they could think they do. But then when you make this decision to make this public, that often challenges those relationships. And so in that day, I want to recognize Coming Out Day as an incredibly positive and good thing. I've never been better as an individual, mental health wise, personal life wise, and my relationships wise. It's been an incredibly powerful and positive experience for me. But with that, there's always the baggage that can come along with that. There's always the negatives that come along with it. And it's not a decision that people make lightly. And so in that, I want to encourage you to support the queer people in your life, to support the queer people in the community that we have at Buff, at Southwest Michigan, at the OutCenter. Continue to be incredibly powerful allies. Continue the work that you all are doing. We're very thankful again. I want to thank you for having me here today. I'm sorry I had to do virtual. I plan on coming in person. I promise. I really do. And I will definitely be doing that. But I do just want to thank you again for hearing my story, hearing a bit of my heart towards these things, and, being a part of the positive changes that we see happening in Southwest Michigan. So thank you again. I don't know who's next or what's happening next, so I'm just going to sign off. I'll talk to you later.
We extinguish the flame, but we take the symbol in our hearts and minds into the world, working, loving, and living on the side of love.
Thank you, Dorothy.